I was in a relationship with Ashley for 2 years. It was good in the beginning. 6 months ago, I moved into her apartment. When she lost her job, I offered to pay the rent until she found another one. But lately, she started hanging out with her male friends all the time, ignoring me completely. When I complained about feeling neglected, she joked that I should compete for her attention with them while continuing to pay her bills. Let me tell you what happened next. Before I get into this story, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to the channel for more relationship stories that might save you from making the same mistakes I did. Our love story began at a small coffee shop near my office in downtown Seattle. I work in IT for a software company, spending my days troubleshooting systems and coding solutions. On that particular morning, I was grabbing my usual black coffee when I noticed her. Ashley was standing in line talking animatedly on her phone about a marketing campaign she was working on. Her energy was magnetic. When she accidentally bumped into me and spilled some of her latte on my shirt, it created the perfect opportunity to start a conversation. There was an immediate spark between us. Her smile lit up the room, and I found myself captivated by her vibrant personality. I gathered my courage and asked for her number, suggesting we meet for dinner sometime. Our first date was at a cozy Italian restaurant. The conversation flowed effortlessly as we shared stories about our lives, careers, and dreams. Ashley worked in marketing for a trendy startup, and her passion for her job was evident in the way she described creative campaigns she had developed. I was drawn to her ambition and zest for life. When she laughed at my terrible jokes, I felt like the luckiest guy in Seattle. The first 6 months of our relationship were nothing short of magical. We spent weekends exploring hidden trails in the mountains, discovering new restaurants, and enjoying quiet evenings cooking together at my place. We took a spontaneous road trip down the Pacific Coast Highway, staying at charming bed and breakfasts along the way. Ashley would often tell me she had never felt so loved and appreciated in a relationship before. I began to believe I had found the person I wanted to spend my life with. I trusted Ashley completely and invested my heart fully in our relationship. We started making plans for the future, talking about traveling to Europe the following summer and even mentioning the possibility of marriage down the road. Everything seemed perfect, and I was confident in what we were building together. After 18 months of dating, we decided to take the next step in our relationship. Ashley suggested I move into her apartment since it was more spacious than mine and closer to both of our workplaces. It made practical sense, so I agreed. We discussed finances and decided to split the rent and utilities equally, which seemed fair to both of us. I remember the first night after officially moving in. We celebrated with champagne and takeout from our favorite Thai restaurant, sitting cross-legged on the floor among unpacked boxes. Ashley looked at me with such tenderness that night, telling me how happy she was to start this new chapter together. I fell asleep feeling content, believing I had made the right decision. The honeymoon phase of living together lasted about 2 months. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, Ashley came home one day with tears in her eyes. Her company had undergone restructuring and her position had been eliminated. I immediately comforted her, assuring her that everything would be okay. Without hesitation, I offered to cover the full rent and utilities until she found another job. She hugged me tightly, expressing her gratitude and promising to find a new position as quickly as possible. I believed her and wanted to support her during this challenging time. I had savings and my salary could cover our expenses temporarily, so I told her to take the pressure off and focus on finding the right opportunity. As weeks passed, I began noticing a pattern. Ashley would tell me she had spent the day job hunting, but her description of her efforts seemed vague. When I asked about specific companies or positions, she would quickly change the subject. Meanwhile, she started going out more frequently with friends, coming home late with stories about dinner gatherings and nights out. Conversations about her job search became increasingly tense. When I gently asked about progress or suggested companies that were hiring, Ashley would become defensive, saying I was pressuring her or not understanding how difficult the market was. I backed off, not wanting to cause more stress. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Ashley began mentioning new friends she had met in her morning yoga class. The group included several women and 3 men, Jackson the instructor and 2 regular attendees, Zach and Trevor. According to Ashley, they all shared interests in fitness, mindfulness, and the local music scene. These new friends quickly became the center of Ashley's social life. Several times a week, she would head out for dinner with them, attend concerts, or go to bars. Her phone constantly buzzed with notifications from their group chat, and she would laugh at inside jokes I knew nothing about. A few times she invited me to join them. I went along trying to be supportive and open-minded, but I never felt comfortable. The group had established dynamics that made me feel like an outsider. Jackson in particular seemed overly familiar with Ashley, often putting his arm around her shoulder or whispering comments that would make her laugh. When I was present, the conversations revolved around yoga poses, spiritual concepts, or people I did not know, making it nearly impossible for me to contribute meaningfully. After a few uncomfortable evenings, I started declining the invitations, using work as an excuse. Ashley didn't seem to mind. In fact, she appeared relieved that she could go out without me. When she was with her friends, she rarely responded to my texts or calls, claiming later that she had not heard her phone or that the bar was too noisy. As Ashley spent more time with her new social circle, our relationship began to change dramatically. The warmth and intimacy we once shared started to fade. She no longer greeted me with a kiss when I came home from work or suggested weekend activities for us to do together. Our movie nights, once a cherished ritual, became non-existent. I found myself staying up late on weeknights, waiting for her to return home only to have her slip quietly into bed without acknowledging me. When I tried to initiate conversations about our day or suggest plans, she would respond with one-word answers or claim she was too tired to talk. Yet the following morning, she would be energetic and excited when making plans with her friends. Social media became a source of pain for me. Ashley regularly posted photos of herself with the group looking carefree and happy at rooftop bars, concerts, and restaurants. In contrast, she had not posted anything about us together in months. Looking at these images, I felt like I was getting a glimpse into a part of her life where I was completely absent and unwanted. I began to feel like a stranger in our relationship, more of a roommate than a partner. The emotional connection that had once been so strong between us seemed to be disintegrating, and I did not know how to repair it. I missed the Ashley I had fallen in love with, and wondered if she still existed. After weeks of growing distance, I decided to address the situation directly. One evening, when Ashley was actually home, I asked if we could talk about our relationship. I expressed my feelings of neglect and concern about the direction we were headed. I tried to approach the conversation with understanding rather than accusation, hoping she would be receptive. Ashley immediately became defensive. She crossed her arms and claimed I was being controlling and trying to limit her independence. When I explained that I just wanted more quality time together, she said she needed space to be herself and explore her interests. I reluctantly brought up the financial aspect of our situation, reminding her that I had been covering all our expenses for nearly 3 months, while she spent money on dinners, concerts, and new yoga outfits. This only escalated the tension. She retorted angrily, "I am trying to enjoy myself during a difficult period in my life." Is that so wrong? Do you want me to sit at home and be miserable just because I lost my job? I tried to explain that I was not asking her to be miserable, just to be more considerate of our relationship and financial situation. Before I could finish, she grabbed her purse and said she was meeting Jackson for coffee to discuss an opportunity he had mentioned. The conversation ended abruptly, with no resolution, as she walked out the door. As days turned into weeks, I began to face the harsh reality of our situation. I was working 50-hour weeks, paying for our rent, utilities, groceries, and most of our shared expenses. Meanwhile, Ashley appeared to have abandoned her job search altogether. When I checked our shared laptop browsing history one day, I found no evidence of job applications or resume updates. Through a mutual friend, I discovered that Ashley had actually been offered a position at a marketing agency but had turned it down because she felt the salary was insufficient and the commute too long. This revelation hit me hard, as she had never mentioned this opportunity to me. The financial strain was beginning to take its toll. Reviewing my bank statements, I realized I had depleted a significant portion of my savings. At the same time, I noticed Ashley's credit card statement on the kitchen counter, revealing purchases at high-end clothing stores and expensive restaurants on days she had told me she was job hunting. Despite these red flags, I struggled with the idea of ending the relationship. I kept hoping that Ashley would realize how her behavior was affecting me, and that we could find our way back to the loving partnership we once had. I wanted to believe that her current actions were just a temporary response to the stress of unemployment, rather than a reflection of her true character. My close friends Brian and Kyle expressed their concerns when we met for drinks one evening. They pointed out that I seemed unhappy and stressed a stark contrast to my usual positive self. They questioned whether Ashley was taking advantage of my generosity and suggested I needed to establish clearer boundaries. Though their words resonated with me, I was not yet ready to accept the full implications of what they were saying. One rare evening when Ashley was home, I suggested we talk about our future. After nearly 4 months of unemployment with minimal job-searching efforts, I felt we needed to establish a timeline and plan. I approached the conversation carefully, offering to help with her resume or practice interviews, trying to be supportive rather than critical. Ashley immediately became irritated. She rolled her eyes and sighed dramatically before saying, "Not this again, Douglas. I do not need you monitoring my job search like I am some child." I explained that it was not about monitoring her, but about our shared future. I mentioned that I was concerned about our financial situation and the sustainability of our current arrangement. As gently as I could, I expressed feeling taken advantage of. This triggered an explosive response from Ashley. "Taken advantage of, really, Douglas? I did not realize your support came with so many strings attached. I am not obligated to stay home just because you pay the rent." The argument escalated quickly. When I mentioned that I just wanted more time together like we used to have, she delivered the crushing blow that would change everything. "If you want my attention so badly, maybe you should try competing for it like Jackson and the other guys do. At least they know how to show a girl a good time without keeping a financial scorecard." Her words hit me like a physical blow. I retreated to my home office, needing space to process what had just happened. As I sat there trying to make sense of her callous statement, my phone buzzed with a message from Brian. He had been at a bar downtown and had inadvertently spotted Ashley there, even though she had told me she was going to a job networking event. Brian attached a photo, apologizing for being the bearer of bad news. The image showed Ashley sitting intimately close to Jackson, his arm wrapped around her waist, their foreheads nearly touching as they laughed. It was not the posture of friends or a professional networking contact. The timestamp showed it was taken just 2 hours after she had left our apartment. With a sinking feeling in my stomach, I began looking for more evidence of what I now suspected. I found Ashley had left her laptop logged into her email. I know privacy is important, but given the circumstances, I felt justified in looking. What I discovered shattered any remaining illusions I had about our relationship. In conversations with her friends, Ashley had referred to me as her meal ticket and financial safety net. There were jokes about how I was funding her hot girl summer, while being clueless about what was really going on. In one particularly painful exchange, she had laughed about how easy it was to manipulate me with occasional affection when I started asking too many questions. But the most devastating discovery was a conversation with Jackson, where they discussed their plans for her to move into his apartment once Douglas has outlived his usefulness. They had been seeing each other romantically for over 2 months, all while I worked to support her and tried to salvage what I thought was just a rough patch in our relationship. I waited up for Ashley that night, sitting in the darkened living room, until she returned shortly after midnight. When she switched on the light and saw me sitting there, her expression of surprise quickly turned to annoyance. "Why are you still up monitoring my curfew now?" she asked sarcastically. Without emotion, I held up my phone, showing the photo Brian had sent. "Want to explain this? Or maybe the emails where you call me your meal ticket? Or perhaps your plans to move in with Jackson once I am no longer useful?" Ashley's face cycled through several emotions: shock, anger, and then a cold calculation. She first tried to deny everything, claiming the photo was not what it looked like, and that I was violating her privacy by reading her emails. When she saw I was unmoved, her strategy shifted. Fine, you know what, yes, Jackson and I have a connection. Maybe if you were more exciting and less focused on practical, boring things like jobs and bills, I would not have needed to look elsewhere for companionship. I asked directly, "Do you even love me anymore, Ashley? Was any of this real?" Her response was brutally honest. "I did in the beginning, but not for a long time now. I stayed because it was convenient. You paid the bills, you were stable, you were safe. But that is not enough for me." In that moment, the pain was almost unbearable. 2 years of what I thought was building a future together had been reduced to a financial arrangement in her eyes. Everything I believed about our relationship had been a lie. I needed the night to process everything and decide my next steps. Sleep did not come easily as my mind raced through options, memories, and the painful reality I now faced. By morning, I had clarity. I would not allow myself to be used any longer. First, I researched my legal position. Since my name was not on the lease agreement, I had no obligation to continue paying rent. I contacted Ashley's landlord to explain the situation and confirm that I would no longer be making payments. The landlord expressed sympathy and informed me that, without rent eviction, proceedings would begin after 30 days of non-payment. Next, I mapped out a financial exit strategy. I transferred my direct deposits to a new bank account Ashley had no access to and canceled all automatic payments for utilities and other shared expenses. I calculated exactly how much money I had spent supporting her over the past 4 months, a sobering figure that reinforced my decision. I searched for and secured a new apartment across town. It was smaller than the one I shared with Ashley, but more affordable, and most importantly, mine alone. The property manager understood my situation and expedited the application process, allowing me to move in within a week. I decided against confronting Ashley again or giving her advance notice of my plans. Our last conversation had shown me that she was manipulative and would likely try to convince me to stay just long enough for her to secure her transition to Jackson's place. I needed to make a clean break without giving her the opportunity to exploit my emotions further. While Ashley was out with the guys the following weekend, I put my plan into action. I had already been quietly packing my essential belongings throughout the week when she was out. My friends Brian and Kyle came over with a rented truck, and within 3 hours we had removed all my possessions from the apartment. I systematically went through all our shared accounts and services, removing my payment information and transferring subscriptions I wanted to keep to my new email address. I made sure to document everything I was taking and leaving behind to avoid any claims of theft or property damage later. I updated my address with the post office, my employer, and all important contacts. I wanted to ensure that no trace of my life would remain connected to that apartment or to Ashley. It was a painstaking process, but each step felt like reclaiming a piece of my independence. Throughout this process, I leaned heavily on my support system. Brian and Kyle not only helped with the physical move but provided emotional support as well. I reconnected with other friends I had seen less frequently during my relationship with Ashley, rebuilding connections that had weakened while I was focused on trying to make things work with her. On my final day in the apartment, I stood in what had once been our shared space, now half empty with only Ashley's possessions remaining. I felt a complex mixture of grief for what I had believed we had, anger at her deception, and relief that I was finally taking control of my situation. I wrote a short letter and left it on the kitchen counter where she would find it. It read, "Ashley, I have moved out and will no longer be paying the rent or utilities. You joked that I should compete for your attention with Jackson and your other male friends. I have decided not to play that game at all. You are free to pursue Jackson or anyone else you want, but not on my dime. Do not try to contact me. I have blocked your number and removed you from all my social media accounts. Douglas." I placed my key next to the letter, took one last look around, and walked out. As I closed the door behind me, I felt a weight lifting. I was hurt, yes, but I was also free from a relationship that had become toxic and one-sided. I drove to my new apartment and began the process of rebuilding my life on my terms. As expected, Ashley panicked when she realized the financial implications of my departure. Through mutual friends, I heard that she had been frantically trying to contact me through every possible channel. She called my workplace, reached out to friends, and even attempted to contact my family members. When those efforts failed, her messages became increasingly hostile and manipulative. She left voicemails alternating between tearful apologies, angry accusations, and desperate pleas for help with the rent, just until she could get back on her feet. I maintained my silence and my boundaries, letting her messages go unanswered. When Ashley turned to Jackson and her other friends for financial help, they quickly revealed their true colors. Jackson, who had been so attentive when Ashley was buying drinks and dinners with my money, suddenly had too many expenses to help her with rent. Zach and Trevor, who had enjoyed her company at clubs and concerts, were equally unavailable when she needed actual support. Within 3 weeks, Ashley received an eviction notice. Unable to pay the rent and with nowhere else to go, she was forced to pack up her things and move back to her parents' house in Portland. It was a significant fall from the independent, carefree lifestyle she had been enjoying at my expense. In a final attempt to salvage her pride, Ashley began posting passive-aggressive comments on social media, painting herself as the victim of a cruel and sudden abandonment. She conveniently omitted any mention of her infidelity or financial exploitation. Mutual friends who knew the truth quickly came to my defense, and her attempts to damage my reputation fell flat. While Ashley was dealing with the consequences of her actions, I was focused on healing and rebuilding. The first few weeks alone were difficult. I experienced waves of anger, sadness, and self-doubt. I questioned how I could have been so blind to the red flags, and whether I would ever be able to trust someone again. I decided to seek professional help, and started seeing a therapist who specialized in relationship trauma. These sessions provided a safe space to process my feelings of betrayal and work through the damage to my self-esteem. My therapist helped me understand that being deceived did not make me weak or foolish. It made me human. Gradually, I redirected my energy toward positive changes in my life. I dedicated more time to my career, earning a certification I had been putting off, and taking on challenging projects that showcased my skills. This renewed focus resulted in a promotion 6 months later, validating my professional worth in a way that felt especially meaningful after having my personal worth so undermined. I reconnected with old friends and made efforts to build new friendships based on genuine shared interests. I joined a local hiking club and a community service organization, surrounding myself with people who valued authenticity and mutual respect. These connections helped restore my faith in relationships. I also rediscovered personal hobbies I had neglected during my relationship with Ashley. I resumed playing guitar, took cooking classes, and spent weekends exploring the Pacific Northwest. These activities not only filled my time but reminded me of my identity outside of any relationship. Through this journey, I gained invaluable wisdom about relationships and self-worth. I learned to recognize the difference between generosity and being taken advantage of, between compromise and sacrifice. I established clearer boundaries and became more attentive to early warning signs of imbalance in relationships. Most importantly, I came to understand that real love does not diminish you or empty your reserves. It enriches your life and encourages growth for both partners. True partnership involves mutual support, respect, and contribution, even when circumstances change. I do not regret the time I spent with Ashley, as painful as the ending was. That experience taught me lessons about myself and relationships that I might have otherwise taken years to learn. I am now more equipped to recognize authentic connection and more confident in my ability to walk away from situations that do not serve my well-being. Today, I am not bitter or resentful. I have forgiven Ashley not for her benefit but for my own peace of mind. I have accepted that some people come into our lives to teach us important lessons rather than to stay forever. I am open to the possibility of love again, but with a wiser heart and clearer eyes. Looking toward the future, I feel hopeful and genuinely excited about the possibilities that lie ahead. My experience has not hardened me against trust or intimacy, but has taught me to approach relationships with both an open heart and healthy discernment. The pain of betrayal was real, but it did not define me or my capacity for connection. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who was taking advantage of your generosity? What helped you move forward? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about relationships, self-discovery, and personal growth. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to recognize when to let go. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength and wisdom in all your relationships.